So
Just to
annoying.
avoid my
I
shitty hair.
decided to
Your hair's
blow
pretty
dry my hair for the first time, and like it just like blow dries flat, and now it's annoying me.
Dude,
So.
I kind of want you to shut up right now because your hair looks so good. Welcome to week 5, chapter 5.
Yes, week
of
5,
The
chapter
Artist's
5.
Way.
I can't believe we're actually on week 5 already. It's gone so quickly,
Yeah.
hasn't it?
This year in general, February's basically, it feels like it's over.
Yeah, it
And
does.
it's always shorter anyway.
It
Thank God
does.
summer's coming because I've had really bad seasonal affective disorder this winter.
Me too. So we've got our snacks. Neither of us know
I'm
what
so
snacks
excited.
we've bought today, so I'm excited. You can go first
Yeah.
if you'd like.
Okay.
I'm excited to see what you've got.
Candy sticks.
What is that? Oh, the candy sticks. Oh my God. I forgot about those. I forgot they existed.
I feel so cool. Like, I didn't think these did exist anymore.
No.
Oh, but these, like, I thought these were discontinued because they made kids want to smoke.
I mean, maybe.
Because they did.
My snack today, I've got it down here somewhere. I don't know if you can see what that is. Baby Bell.
Vegan Baby Bell.
They do vegan Baby Bells now. So, and I used to love Baby Bells when I was
That's so
a kid.
funny. I've been literally eating Baby Bells this week.
Have you?
I finished a packet
That's so funny.
yesterday.
I just loved, this bit, the bit with the wax.
The
And you
wax.
peel it off.
I loved playing with that as a kid, or like
Same.
melting it, or
I
like
would
rolling it into a
smush
tight
it up.
ball in my hands.
Yeah, just that feeling.
I don't know how to eat this without pretending I'm smoking a cigarette.
I know you're like holding
It's
it like
only-
a cigarette.
It's only fun if you hold it like this.
Week 5, recovering a sense of possibility. This week, you are being asked to examine your payoffs in remaining stuck. You will explore how you curtail your own possibilities by placing limits on the good you can receive. You will examine the cost of settling for appearing good instead of being authentic. You may find yourself thinking about radical changes, no longer ruling out your growth by making others the cause of your constriction. Not construction. Constriction.
It was immediately relatable. Like I felt very called out by it, especially the limits chapter, because this made me think of, before I moved to Canada, I was doing a whole bunch of research on like what the acting scene was like. And it was a lot of people just saying, if you're here on a work visa, forget trying to find work because the taxes are different. It'll be really hard for you. No one will want to hire you. Or people saying like, yeah, good luck getting an agent. Like agents need you to be like a permanent resident, like all this stuff. Because I read one thing online that made it sound like you can't be self-employed on a work visa. I basically completely convinced myself that acting was something I had to let go of until I had like a permanent residency and a normal job.
Yeah.
And then I got here and I wasted like 8 months doing nothing, not 8 months, like 6 months, not doing anything to do with acting because I felt like it was pointless. And then I finally got to a point where I get like really desperate to do something creative. I start feeling like antsy. I was like, fuck it, I'm just going to book like a casting director workshop. So I went to the workshop, met so many other people who were there on work visas and who were working just fine as actors, who had like so much advice for me. And then from that workshop ended up getting an agent because someone referred me to like an agent they knew.
Oh,
So I'm
really?
like, all I had to do was one step, like just believe for a minute, well, maybe these people online are talking crap, or maybe I can do it anyway. Take one step in that direction and everything fell into place for me. And I was so annoyed at myself for like wasting 6 months thinking it was impossible.
I think that's such a important thing. Like when you look at what people are doing, or there's something a goal that you want to achieve, or something that you want to make it to, it always seems really far away when you're not looking at all the little first steps before you get to that point. And it's really hard to look at those first steps, especially if you don't have anyone to model it off and it's a completely new direction that none of your close friends or family have gone in before. I think it's really hard to think of that first step. But then when you do it, it's always like the most simple thing, and you just, like, why did I put this off for so long? Which is kind of what she's talking about in the chapter, is that we limit ourselves, we put those boundaries on ourselves, or other people do, I guess. If you speak to someone and they say, oh, you can't do that, and you just take their word for it. And, especially when it's people in positions of authority or positions of power, you kind of think that they know what they're talking about most of the time. And it's not always the case.
So often people need to have like an inspiration, like they need to sometimes it helps me to like find somebody who's done what I want to do, so I can be like, okay, well, clearly it's possible. But that person being there like didn't make it a possibility for me. That's all just me playing mind games with myself. Like, I was always capable of it. It's just sometimes you need to just actually you need to have some, you need to make some kind of leap of faith. Otherwise you're always going to be limited by what you think is possible, and what you don't have a clue what's possible. Like, this world is too big and too complicated for you to have any idea what is possible for you at this
Honestly,
time.
it's like that whole thing of being, you have to be a bit delusional. You have to go into things and just think, this will work out. Don't know how I'm going to get
Yep.
there. It just will happen. And it's funny because even when I started my yoga career, I was working at Gymbox on reception. And I think one of the things that helped me get into the career was seeing other yoga teachers make it their job, because I didn't even realize, I knew I liked yoga. I kind of knew I wanted to teach. I wanted to go down that avenue and see what it was about, but I didn't know how to make that into a job. I was like, how do people do that? Because it seemed so far from everything I'd learned at school, at university. But seeing those teachers and talking to them and asking how they became a yoga teacher, and they just said, oh, just book a 200-hour training. And I was like, that's it. You just book a training. I was like, you don't need anything for it. Like, you just book a training. She's like, yeah, you book the training and you train and you become a teacher. I was like, oh, okay, I will do that then. And then I just booked it. And I feel like sometimes you just need people around you who break those first steps down, or you need to do it yourself, where you just suddenly become delusional and you're like, well, I'm just going to do it.
Or sometimes you just need someone to be like, why not? Or like,
Yeah.
have you tried?
Yeah.
Because sometimes, and I've done this before, I'll be complaining about how something is so hard and so impossible, and then someone will be like, oh, well, did you try this? And I'll be like, well, no, because I that's not going to work. It's
Yeah.
just that's never going to work. And it's like, well, why?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
can
It's all
we
the
calm down and just try?
excuses that we put up. And I think maybe we put those excuses up because we're scared to try, or we're scared to fail. And so we sort of say to
Scared to
ourselves,
fail.
no, I haven't done that yet. No, like, I can't do this and I can't do that, but I haven't tried. But, it's not possible for
Yeah.
me. A lot of people think of it that
It's
themselves.
it also makes me think of, like, especially since I turned 30, one of my biggest limiting beliefs is like, I'll be like, oh, this will take too long, I'll be too old by then. But I was thinking that when I was in my like early 20s. I was like, oh, but if it takes me 10 years, I'll be 30. Well, now I'm 30 and I still haven't taken those steps, and now I'll be 40 if it takes me as long as I thought it was going to take me. So it's like, and I remember there was a quote at one point in The Artist's Way, I can't remember what chapter it was, but we have read it already, where something along the lines of, do you understand how old I'll be by the time this works out if I start that now? And she's like, yeah, the same age you'll be if you don't. Like,
Exactly. Yeah.
you're gonna get old. Like, that time is gonna pass either way. So that's such a stupid reason to hold yourself back. Like, you're never gonna be as young as you are right now.
Yeah, exactly. And it's so true when you actually think of it that way. And you're just like, the time will pass. You will be 40 when you're 40. You'll be 50 when you're 50. It's just what you want to add into those. If you want to do a 5-year course, in 5 years' time, you're going to be the same age. You will have done the course or you will have not done it. And it's your choice to make those little decisions, and they influence your whole life. And I think that was also what she was kind of talking about, is how we can't control everything in our lives, but we have influence over which directions and which kind of areas we want to go into. And I think that's really important to remember, that you have some kind of influence over things. Just by being open and being ready for things, things will come to you. And by being, and a bit delusional. It's always about the being a bit delusional. That is the main thing.
Honestly, being delusional is the best thing you can do. This is maybe a good time to mention the best little lesson I learned this week off TikTok. I can't remember whose TikTok this was. If I can find it, I will try and credit it. But I was just scrolling, like, it wasn't even somebody I followed. Basically, they said luck is a combination of exposure, time, and action. And so you need all three of those. So you can have you can have like max exposure, max time, but if you never take any actions, obviously you're never going to seize any opportunities. You can do all the things and let all the time pass, but if you never have any exposure, you're not going to be exposed to those opportunities, so it won't happen.
Exactly.
And vice versa, if you have max exposure, max actions, but you don't give any time to pass, then there's not going to be time for things to happen. So you need all three parts of that equation. And I found that so like motivating, because it made me feel like I was in control of my own fate, because I do believe in luck and serendipity and synchronicity and all these things like coming together. I do think like sometimes the universe just conspires, because there are things that have happened to me that I just cannot explain, other than to be like, oh, I guess I got lucky and something that was like 1 in a million chance happened. But the truth is, like, there is some control over that too.
There is
And it
definitely.
just made me think, like, it's a formula. You can, like, so for me with like acting or writing, I can literally be like, okay, what can I do this week for exposure, what can I do for action, and then the time will take care of itself. And it just, I don't know, it made me feel like I had some say in where my life was going. I really liked
You
it.
do. And there's something to be said about people that think that they're lucky and people that think that they're unlucky as well. And I heard about this study, this psychological study that was done. You might have, I think it was in the podcast that I sent to you, I can't remember. But it was about people who, they got a bunch of people who naturally thought they were lucky people and people who just genuinely thought they were unlucky people. And they put them together in the same room and they gave them all a newspaper. And within that newspaper, they hid a message that said, you've won 10 grand or some kind of big prize within the newspaper. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was quite a big difference in who found the winning prize and also who skimmed over it. So the lucky people found the prize way more often and they would find it and be like, oh my goodness, I've won this thing. And then they'd go and get the prize. Whereas the unlucky people either would skim over it and they wouldn't even see it, or they'd find it and they'd see it and they'd just scroll past because they'd think it was not real, or they were like, oh, they didn't relate it to
Interesting.
themselves. But that's just based on people thinking that they're lucky or thinking that they're unlucky. And so even in that, that's the same kind of thing. If you think you're lucky, your actions will relate back to that as well. And equally, if you think you're unlucky, you're going to miss out on a lot of things because you're going to think that it's not for you because I'm not a lucky person. Those kind of things don't happen to me. So I thought that was really,
Yeah.
really interesting that there was a study that even did that.
I think we all either, as well, either know someone like this or unfortunately are someone like this. There are some people that are so negative that you can almost feel the energy like being drained around them. Like and I know everything I say to try and change the kind of course of the conversation or to try and bring some like optimism into their life. I know they're gonna either get annoyed at me for doing so or just like shut me down or give me a million reasons why it can't work out instead of thinking like why it can. Like I met this girl once. I was going to a convention and the way it worked is you would buy all your stuff beforehand and then you'd pick it up on day one. So you'd buy like your photo ops, your autographs, your meet and greets, whatever. And I was going with this girl. I didn't really know her that well. And as soon as I met her, I was like, oh, she's having a hard time. Like I could just tell she was like feeling down about a lot of things. She probably had good reason to. I didn't, like I said, didn't know her that well. But she kept like reading the terms and conditions of this convention. And she was so convinced that there was going to be something wrong with her pack when she arrived. Like she said to me, she was like, "Did you read this terms and conditions section? It says if you don't check your pack when they give it to you, and there's something missing, and you don't tell them there and then, they won't give it to you. Like even if you have a receipt, because you could have just hid it. So you have to tell them straight away if it's missing." And I'm like, "Why are you assuming stuff is going to be missing? Why would there be anything missing?" I'm just like, I don't even know why you're thinking about this. Well, I spoke to a lot of people at this convention and one person's stuff was missing when she picked up her pack, and it was all the expensive stuff she wanted the most. It was all with like the one person she wanted to meet the most was missing as soon as she got her pack. And I was like, isn't that interesting? Like it's either extreme coincidence, either you had like mad intuition and you knew this was going to happen, or you constantly put out this negative idea that this bad thing was going to happen to you, and you were the only person out of like 600 people that it happened to.
Yeah.
Like
And it's funny because I think
it was
people
just
like that
weird.
as well, when those kind of things happen, they will then be like, see, told you, see, I told you, this happens to me,
Yeah.
see, I told you. And actually, if you think of it the other way around, if you were a generally lucky person or you didn't think like that and then something like that happened, you might just be like, oh, that's a shame, but I'll figure something else out, or you'll react differently to it. And I think that a lot of people that talk like that and those kind of negative, maybe feeling unlucky kind of people put those things in place, but then they do have lucky stuff happen to them. They just refuse
I
to
just
see
don't
it.
see it.
Yeah. And it will happen to them and they won't acknowledge it, but they'll acknowledge all the bad things that happen because they can see the
Yeah.
patterns in those, but they can't see the patterns in the good things that happen. And good things do happen to everyone. Even when you're going through really difficult times, there are still little moments of good things that do happen throughout that. But it's whether or not you take the time to slow down and see it. And I think that's definitely something yeah, exactly. Another thing that was kind of came up around this limits section of the book was this idea of abundance and scarcity mindset. Well, that came up for me when I was kind of reading through this and talking about it anyway. And I think in the kind of era that we live in, people do live in a scarcity mindset quite often, and all that means is thinking that because someone else has something, you can't have it, and that there's a limited supply of success, of love, of all of these things, of health, and when other people have it, you think that that's taking away from you. And in ways, I don't know where we came up with this idea, but I remember, especially as a woman, actually being kind of pitted against each other when growing up, when if one girl had everything, it took away from me or it took away from other girls. And we were kind of, I don't know if it was the way we were brought up or if girls were just like this when they're teenagers, but I know I always struggled with that, where I felt like other girls had things and I didn't. But as I've grown up and as I've kind of learned more about those things and more about abundance and this idea that there is an abundance of everything, and just because someone else has something doesn't take away from you, learning that really changed my whole perspective on a lot of different things in life, in success, but also in that kind of womanhood aspect as well.
I wonder how much of that as well is to do with like when you're younger and you're growing up, your world is very small. Like, you're very limited in your reach. So, like, I'm just trying to think of an example here, but say, like, you're in a class of 30 kids, and that's what your everyday consists of. That is, in your opinion, in your view, that is your whole world. That's all that matters. Those are the people that matter to you, especially when we were younger and social media wasn't really a thing, especially if your family didn't really travel or you didn't do much outside of like school and home. So when opportunities did come up, and I mean things like for kids, like say there's like star pupil of the week, it is only one person out of 30. And so it would always give me that sense that if I'm not the best in the room, if I'm not the best like within my small space, then these limited opportunities, of course I can't have them, like they'll
Yeah.
pass me by. But then I think like I grew up and I got out like in the world and I went traveling, and I realized actually anything that I want to do, there is a space for that. Like someone can do this over here and I can add to it over here, or I can, there's always something new to bring to the
Yeah.
table.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just like perspective, I think.
I think traveling is such a huge part of realizing that as well. And I think even because I've traveled quite a bit with work, but also just outside of work. And I do think just by being in different places and different cultures and meeting different people, when you meet travelers, they have a certain vibe about them where they're kind of really open to the world, and seeing that makes you realize that there are so many different opportunities and there's like an abundance of things to do and places to see and people to be. And I think when you are kind of stuck in your little bubble at home, you do just kind of only see your peripheral. You don't really see anything else outside of that. But by traveling and by having new experiences, you do expand your lens basically and see the world in a different way.
Makes it harder to compare yourself as well,
Yeah.
because if you're comparing yourself only to the people immediately in your vicinity, if you're never really reaching beyond that, then you're always going to feel like you're never going to be grateful for the things you do have that most people in the world don't, like for one thing. And yeah, that's just, I don't know. I remember my favorite thing about traveling to North America for the first time is I felt like the people here were so much more eccentric than in the UK. Like in the UK, it was very much like, especially in school, there's one group of popular kids and then there's everyone else. Or there's one interesting team and then there's everything else. Sports aren't really a big deal. There wasn't like chess club. There wasn't like, you couldn't really, if you were quite a niche person, if you had niche interests, it was so hard to find your space, to find your people. Whereas when I got to, maybe that was just me limiting myself within the country. Like I'm sure there are plenty of people, but it was hard to find them. Whereas when I went traveling and I kind of reached out online to find my people who shared my interests, I was like, oh my God, they've been here this whole time. And it was the
You
first time in
found
my
them.
life that I really like connected with people and, started comparing myself to people that I wanted to be more like. And it started actually changing me in a positive way.
Yeah.
So
I love
yeah, I
that.
think it's
That's
so
amazing.
important.
I also think this, as you said, like part of what you said was talking about how you might have put those limits on yourself as well. And I think as humans, we do tend to put ourselves in boxes. Even when I talk to people, they'll just say, oh, I'm not the type of person that can do that. And I just think, who told you that? Are you telling yourself that, or someone else told you that? But why do you think that you're not that type of person, whatever that means? And actually doing this book the first time last year really expanded my sense of self in that way, because I didn't think I was the type of person that could go out on my own and do things on my own. And I didn't think I was the type of person that could go do a dance class, do a jiu-jitsu class, like all of these random things that I did and experienced. And I wouldn't have done that if it wasn't for this book. But I I just had to take myself out of that box. And instead of saying I'm not that type of person, I changed it around and just said, well, what if I try it? If I like it, I'll do it. And if I don't like it, I won't do it. And then you discover who you are and you start to live in ways that it feels really different, and it kind of expands your whole world view, and you realize there's so many different things out there to try and different things to do. But we put ourselves in that box the same way we put other people in boxes sometimes, which is also something that a lot of people do, and we do need to work on as a whole, because it's like, it's the whole thing of judging a book by its cover, right? You see someone as something and you put them in a box and you're like, okay, that's that. But we do it to ourselves, and I don't think we always realize that we do it to ourselves as well as other people.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
That's why I love the artist date so much, because it forces me to come up with a new idea every week
Yes, exactly.
and try something. And I've been pleasant. Sometimes I've tried stuff and been like, yeah, I was kind of bored the whole time. It wasn't really for me.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then other times I've tried stuff and been like, this was so fun. I'm gonna start like making this a genuine like part of my life. Like I went to the cinema on my own for like my first or my second artist date. And then the next week I did a different artist date, but I also went to the cinema by myself again because I was like,
exactly.
that was so fun.
Yeah, you realize you
I want
enjoyed
to do
it.
that all the time. Yeah. Now I
That's
want to get a
amazing.
cinema subscription, and like
Yeah,
it feels like my life has been enhanced in a way that it's so dumb. It's
yeah.
just a small thing, but
But
I wouldn't have
that's
tried
incredible,
otherwise.
just figuring that out. And for me, it's like, it's been reading this year. I've realized that I actually really enjoy reading, and I have a couple of times. The first one was an artist date where I went to a cafe and opened a book and just read my book there. And since then, I've done it like 4 or 5 times, not as artist dates, but just as time to myself, because I really enjoy being in a space like a nice cafe, a nice environment where there's like a little bit of noise around, but just being in your own world and getting lost in a book. And I actually really enjoy that. And I would have never done that before. I didn't read a book for about 20 years properly since uni. I mean, it hasn't been 20 years since uni. I'm not that old, but however many years ago that was.
God, it
But
feels that way sometimes.
I know, honestly, it does feel that way. Maybe it has been 20 years. I don't even know. Has it been? No.
10 years, dude.
10
years,
years. 10
12
years.
years.
10 years is still
12 years
crazy.
since you went, 10 years, 9 years since you left.
So the next part of the book was called Finding the River, was it called Finding the River? River?
Finding
The
well,
TH?
that's what I wrote here. She really meant this chapter as like finding your flow in life and just saying yes to things more often and letting life be what it is, instead of one, limiting yourself, two, saying no to things, and three, like trying to stifle things before they become like, just let yourself really feel, let yourself be along for the ride, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I love that. That really
Yeah.
reminds me of something that my little brother said to me as well. My little brother Dom, he's always been very someone who kind of goes out and does lots of cool things. He's very successful. And there was a point, I think, I can't actually remember when exactly it was, but it was towards the beginning of my yoga career where I would sort of get that imposter syndrome sometimes, where you feel like, oh, I'm not sure what I'm doing here because I don't know what I'm doing. And that would sometimes make me say no to things because I was scared of doing it wrong or not knowing, and I didn't know what I was supposed to do. So I was like, how can I say yes to something where I don't know the outcome? And something he said to me that literally changed the way I think about everything was just say yes and figure it out later. And it's so simple, but it really changed the way that I showed up in the world and showed up to different places and different things, because it made me realize that you don't need to have everything figured out in the moment at all. You don't. You just need to say yes to the opportunity, and then you figure it out and you figure it out. And you always do end up figuring it out, because as soon as there's that little bit of pressure of this thing happening, and as soon as you've said yes, you've also then put into the universe that you are going to do this and it's going to happen. And then you do just figure it out. And even if it goes wrong or it doesn't work as well, you've learned something from that. And you can take that away, and now you know for next time what to do or what not to do. So it's like a win-win situation. It's never a lose situation. But yeah, that just that little sentence changed so much for me as well.
Literally, I heard you say that once when you posted a reel about it like a few months ago or a few weeks ago, and it just resonated with me. Like, I think it's such an easy sentence to say as well. Like, anytime I would get apprehensive or something, it's so easy to be like, figure it out later. Say yes, figure it out later. And I just started kind of repeating it to myself as a mantra, and it genuinely changed my life for like since I heard it. So I love that piece of advice so much.
Yeah, yeah.
And also what you said about like, even if it goes wrong, and this is something I'm still fighting with myself about, because I've mentioned I've got like pretty bad anxiety. And one thing that I know for sure is the thing that I am scared of is never as bad as the anxiety I feel thinking about the thing I'm scared of. And like the best example I can give right now, because it's recent, like I had a job interview yesterday, and I hate job interviews. Like honestly, the level of fear I feel, you'd think I was preparing to go into war. Like there's something wrong with my body. My fight or flight is badly wired. I get hysterical. I get really like illogical, irrational. I lose control of my breathing. I start feeling like I'm going to be sick. I spend the first 5 minutes of most interviews hyperventilating. I've been asked like, "Oh, were you running late?" Because I'm like, "Hi," and I'm like, "No, I've been actually sat here trying to control my breathing for 3 hours waiting for this interview." But the fear that I feel before an interview is so horrific. Like even the worst scenario, like say I go into an interview and I absolutely bomb it and I embarrass myself, like I can think of a million things I could do that would be horrific. None of that in the moment would feel as bad as the anxiety I had leading up to the
Yeah.
event.
Yeah.
So we stop ourselves sometimes for fear of things that actually you'd probably be able to manage just fine if
Yeah.
they were to happen.
Yeah.
You know,
That reminds me of
it's so
something,
stupid.
an analogy I found in, Taoism, which is kind of like a
No.
spiritual belief that people have, or a
Oh,
spiritual path that people have. But when I was reading a book about Taoism, or reading a little, I think it was actually like was it a Substack? Maybe it was a Substack. But I was reading something about it, and it gave this analogy of being stuck in traffic. And when you're stuck in traffic, there's cars in front of you, there's cars behind you. You kind of get a bit panicky if you're late to something. You get stressed. You start looking up. You start gripping the steering wheel tighter, and you start looking up for the horizon. You might start beeping people. You might be really agitated. But in that moment, all that's changing is you. The traffic is not changing. The lateness is not changing. Nothing else about that situation is changing, but you are, and you're getting more and more frustrated, and that's just creating more and more of this friction. Whereas when you're in those kind of situations where you cannot control what you are in right now, the only thing you can control is how you feel. And how different would it be if, when we are in that situation, because you can't, when you're late for something, it's too late. You can't change how late you're going to be, especially if you're stuck in traffic. But imagine if, instead of getting stressed about it, or instead of getting anxious about it, you sat down and you decided, oh, I've got some time, I'll play a song, or I'll play a podcast that I really like, or I'll relax my shoulders, I'll take a few deep breaths here. How different that would be.
what's that saying? There's a saying. It's a really famous saying. I can't remember who said it. It's something along the lines of, I worried about like millions of things in my life, and some of them actually happened. Like something along those lines of like, we spend all this time in fear of things, and then maybe 1% of those things
Yeah.
actually occur.
Yeah.
And it's shit, or you deal with it, or, there's nothing you can do about it.
No.
But all that other time, it's wasted. And it really is a practice. Like because I tell myself over and over again, it's like, logically, before that interview yesterday, I was like, I don't care, it doesn't matter if I get this job, great. If I don't, was it meant for me? Like genuinely, I did feel that way. So my anxiety wasn't attached to like the outcome or anything bad happening. It's like sometimes it's so practiced, because
Yeah.
anxiety
Yeah.
is something that you practice. It's something that is repeated in your life. It's a habit. And sometimes your brain gets better, but your body doesn't.
Yeah.
So you
Yeah.
really need to like find things that are grounding for you, like you said, like forcing yourself to relax your shoulders,
Yeah.
doing box breathing, like things like that. And also actually continuing to expose yourself to things that scare you. I think that's
Exactly.
continuing to expose and practicing are literally the only ways that you will solidly like find yourself getting better, able to deal
Yeah.
with things.
There was another story that kind of related to that as well, which I just remembered now, which is the story of this man, and it's about kind of trying to control the future, or control the outcomes, and how we can't control them. And he basically went through, there's lots of different parts of the story. I can't remember all of them to recite to you, but one of them was his son fell, broke his leg, and then people around him would come up to him and just say, "Oh, how unlucky," and he just said, "Maybe." And then then the next week, the government came and said they were recruiting young boys to send them to war, but because his son had a broken leg, he couldn't go. And then those people came back to him and they were like, "Oh, how lucky," and he was like, "Maybe." And there were lots of these kind of things that happened in the story, where it was just like bouncing back and forth, and it just shows how everything in the moment, you cannot tell if it's good or bad in the moment when it happens, even if it is something like breaking your leg or losing something. In the moment, you can't tell when something's going to be good or bad. And so why do we try and predict that? And this whole kind of fable story was basically saying we should live more like this man who just says maybe. And he kind of is more neutral about everything. He doesn't get super overexcited when the good things happen, also doesn't get really depressed and sad when the bad things happen, because he knows that in the long run, over the long period of the story, neither of those things are good and bad, and the good and bad changes all the time, and so you can't tell.
That reminds me so much of advice my therapist gave me once. I don't know if I've said this. We can cut if I've already said this. But I was in therapy for anxiety. And one of the things that I said to her is like, look, I have so much social anxiety when we have like work events. Like, you know, we're all going to the pub. And part of that anxiety is I feel like they're all going to be talking about sports and I don't have anything to say about sports. And I just end up sitting there wishing I was at home and I feel socially awkward. And it just honestly, thinking about having to go out after work after a long day in the office and deal with that, like I can't enjoy the evening before. And she was like, okay, I want you to change the way you're thinking about this. And I was like, oh, I know you're going to say like don't assume the worst. And she was like, no, that's not what I was going to say. It could be bad. She was like, it might be. Everything you just said might happen. Also, it might not. It might be fine. Why are you assuming to know? And I was like,
Yeah.
okay. I actually didn't see that advice coming. And it really helped. Like it genuinely helped. And I really started enjoying like those evenings more because I stopped anticipating that it was gonna go a certain way. Because it's the same with if I tell myself, no, it'll be good, it'll be good. Then if it isn't good, I'm like, I knew it wasn't really gonna be good. And I use that negatively as well. Whereas if you literally are just like, maybe it'll be fine.
No one
Maybe it
knows.
won't. Then
Yeah.
you're not hanging on to anything. It's so true.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's just removing yourself from trying to predict the outcome, whether good or bad. I think that's the most important thing is it doesn't matter if it's a good or a bad outcome, you're still trying to predict and you just don't know. So why are you trying to predict? So the next part of the book was the virtue trap.
This made me think about, okay, are you being selfless as a way to be self-destructive? Like, are you giving too much of yourself to other people and then using the excuse like, you know, I didn't have time to do what I wanted this week because I had to help this or I had to do this or I had to that, instead of actively making time for yourself and actually treating yourself the way you'd want others to treat themselves and you. It really makes you think about like what's so bad about the word selfish. Like being selfish is not inherently a bad thing. Like sometimes it is a good thing, sometimes it is a bad thing. The word itself doesn't need to have any negative connotations. And actually, like in the long term, if you're not doing selfish things, if you're never looking out for yourself, you're going to become a grumpy, like dead inside zombie of a person who's not going
Yeah.
to be any good for anyone else anyway.
Yeah.
So
When I was writing my morning pages, some stuff came out about when I was writing about the virtue trap, and I was trying to figure out where I learnt this idea of being selfish is a bad thing. And I don't think it was anything in particular. I don't think anyone ever told me I was selfish or told me that was a bad thing. But I think it's just from growing up around women who look out for others all the time. I do think it's something to do with empathy as well. Being more empathetic, you do want to look after other people and help other people all the time. And that's not inherently a bad thing. I think it's a good thing to have that. But it's only when that crosses the boundary of you look after other people all the time, but you don't look after yourself. I think this is why I found the artist state so hard at the beginning, because I never did anything
same.
for myself, like purely just for myself. And yeah, I think it's maybe a thing that we all kind of struggle with a little bit.
Empathy is it's such an important thing, obviously, for society in general to be a good place to want to be. You need people who have empathy. But I think like we're the same in that we naturally have a bit too much of it. And by or maybe not too much of it, but
The
it's
balance, we're out
about
of
learning
balance
how to
sometimes,
use
I
it.
think.
Yeah, it's like empathy is good when it leads to action. That is controlled. So you know you're trying to you offer yourselves to help people, but not to the extent of burnout or you know not at the cost of your own mental health. But equally, I feel like my own empathy has just led to so many days, weeks, months, years wasted being sad all the time about other people's problems because I felt selfish to be going out and having a good time when I knew that people I loved were suffering.
Yeah.
Like you know, it was really hard to kind of separate my problems from everybody else's, and that's such an important thing to learn how to do because if you took on the weight of the world, you couldn't live your life. Like you just couldn't.
No.
Like you need to learn how to be like, okay, this is sad, but it's not on me right now. There'll be times when things are on me and I have no choice but to carry the weight of them. Right now, me carrying this for someone else is not helpful to anybody.
No. Yeah.
Like that's one of the most difficult lessons I've ever learned.
I think the way she described it as well was interesting when she said, are you self-destructive? Because that word kind of sounds a bit intense, and when you hear it, you're like, no, I'm not self-destructive, like I'm fine. But when she broke it down, she was saying, but are you destructing the self that you are, your authentic self? And by not doing those little things for yourself, every single time you say yes to something that you didn't want to go to, or every single time you do something for else instead of doing the thing for yourself, you are destructing that self that you have. And so I thought that was a really interesting way of looking at things as well. This is why I think when we get to adults, we find it so hard to come back to our authentic self and find our authentic self again, because we've lost who we are. And when you think back to when you were a kid, you had absolutely no problem being yourself as a kid. All kids are just so themselves. And it's only as we get older that we start to mask, or we start to put on different masks and kind of be different people. And then we lose who we actually are. And I think it's really important as an adult to try and find that. But it's also difficult as well.
Yeah, for sure. And there was like a good she had like a series of open-ended sentences under this section that are good for helping you figure out like where you might be going wrong.
You have them? So one of the first question was, the biggest lack in my life is. I actually think for this one I wrote alone time, which is funny because obviously that's what the whole chapter is about, but it's not even just time on my own, because I think time on your own and alone time for you are two very different things. I do have time where I am alone. That's because, I live with two people, but then we're not always in the house at the same time. So I have time where I'm alone. But I think having me time where I'm doing something specifically for myself, I don't have that a lot. I am more with the artist dates now, but I think that is maybe what's lacking in my life more than other things. So that was the main thing that I could think about. But yeah,
I wrote, I'm just rereading my answers here and I've completely forgotten, and it's funny because I think I'd answered these differently on any given day. But I wrote down the biggest lack in my life is not always being joyful around other people. And I think what I meant by that is, and I do this less now, but I used to do this a lot more, where I really rein myself in so much, because and I know I can be a bit much sometimes. Like, I know, and now that I have an ADHD diagnosis, I understand why as well. But I hate that I rein myself in ever. Like, I would rather, thinking about it logically, I'd rather completely always be myself, and either my friends like that or they don't. And most of my closest friends do like that. There's a reason they're still here after so long. Like, yeah, there are arguments, and yeah, there are moments when I'm annoying as hell, and vice versa, but that's so much better. I feel like I so often waste time not being myself around people, and a conversation never really becomes what it could be because I was scared to bring something up, or scared to be as like emotional as I was feeling. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
The last one reason I get sad sometimes is, I wrote is one reason I get sad sometimes is regretting things I didn't try or do. Like, when I'm sitting and I'm just thinking, what if? I do a lot of thinking, what if? And I hate that because I can't change the past, but I try to use it to inform my future. And I know one of my favorite quotes is like, I regret the things I didn't do much more than the things I did do. And I just think I get sad sometimes thinking about missed opportunities, but I try to use that to like say yes to more things like in the future.
Yeah, exactly. But it's funny because I did basically the opposite to you, because what I got sad about sometimes I wrote is feeling a little bit lost with no direction, and I worry about the future. So you're worrying about the past, and I'm sat here worrying about the future, when really we just need
two things we have no control over.
Yeah. Exactly, both of us are worried about things without control. Yeah, how weird is that? That's so funny. Yes, so moving on.
Artist date time.
The artist date. So we kind of had a joint artist date this week, which was really cute.
I loved this week.
I know.
But it still counted because we did it separately.
Exactly, yeah. We were in two different countries, so it was joint but separate. And we both followed, it was two different Bob Ross tutorials, actually, because I think yours looks slightly different to mine. I can't remember. But we followed a Bob Ross tutorial. We bought our paints, we bought our Bob Ross paintbrushes and a canvas and a stand for it all and everything. And we just sat and so we actually I don't think we even did it at the same time. I think you did it the day before me. But we both just did it, and it was really cute. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, that brought up another limiting belief as well, because I've been craving painting since I moved to Vancouver because the view is like
Mm,
incredible. Every time I've looked up at the mountains, I've been like, I want to paint these. I want to paint these because I did enjoy painting like time to time in London. But in my head I was like, but painting supplies are so expensive.
yeah.
I can't afford that right now. So I won't buy them. And then when we decided to, it would be a good artist day, and I was like, oh, I guess, I'll spend the money. It'll be worth it. I looked on Amazon. I got two easels, two little canvases, two sets of acrylic paints, and two sets of paintbrushes for $35, which is
Crazy.
like £18. I'm like, what? Why did I think that it was impossible to find cheap arts? Like, I clearly hadn't even looked.
Yeah, yeah.
I made up a belief in my head and decided to limit myself with it. But
That's
yeah,
so
I'm so
funny.
glad we actually did it.
Right, should we move on to our
Right.
midnight question?
Yes. So this time I've found some old questions. This is such an embarrassing thing to admit, but last year when I was super depressed, and while I was in that period of time where I'd convinced myself acting was not something I could do while in Canada, but I also didn't have a job or any hobbies or anything else, I asked ChatGPT, how can I be happy?
Oh,
Which is so embarrassing. Don't waste your time and AI's resources asking you dumb things like that. But it answered with some really interesting questions. And this was like a few of them that really made me like realize what kind of stuff I wanted to do in my spare time.
yeah.
So the first question is, what makes you lose track of time? And if that's hard to answer instead, when was the last time you forgot to check your phone?
I think whenever I think of, it's actually easier for me to think about when I lose track of checking my phone. And whenever I have lost track of checking my phone, it's whenever I've been on a retreat, surrounded by people, like good people and out in nature. I think that's the time where I feel the most kind of connected to everything and everyone else is when I'm not on my phone. And when you're just having a good time, when you're in like in-depth conversations with people, even if it's not on a retreat, actually, whenever I just meet good friends for coffee or for lunch and we just talk for hours, even when you came over that day, we spoke for like 6 to 8 hours. I don't think I checked my phone at all that day because you were here.
Same.
And it was so nice to just be with someone and you bounce off their energy and you talk to them about things, because honestly my pet hate is talking to someone when they're on their phone, or if they keep checking their phone I instantly check out and I'm like, right, we're not doing this. I'm not doing it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's the time where I think it's being with people, actually being with good people, I would say, is what makes me lose track of time the most. Good
Yeah,
company.
I 100% agree. Like same, like because it's one of the few things that you can be doing that is all engaging, like all encompassing, especially when
Yeah.
you're having like really good conversations. I think my specific answer for this at the time was I'd been to the beach recently, and there was like a bunch of stuff we did. Like I bought like my badminton rackets. I like swam in the sea. I alternated between that and chatting and kind of just going for walks along the beach. And at some point, I thought I'd like lost my phone because I couldn't even remember when I'd seen it last. And I didn't even remember that it was literally still in the bag that I'd packed to go to the beach. Like I hadn't even got it out of the bag.
Yeah.
And it was such a nice feeling. So yeah, sometimes just looking back and being like, okay, what was I doing? Do more of that stuff.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing that, unlike when you're on your phone and you lose track of time, you really are like in the present moment and experiencing life as it's meant to be experienced.
Yeah.
And like even yesterday was a good example of this for me because it was such a busy day. I wasn't completely off my phone because I was talking to people via my phone, but I didn't do any scrolling because I had an interview in the morning. Then I ended up walking to my girlfriend's and we started moving stuff into our new apartment. Then I booked like a reading evening for actors and writers to get together and read like the writers' work. And it was so much fun. And I was there till like 9 p.m. And then I walked home. And then my friend called me and wanted to do some gaming. So I was constantly like not off my phone, but I was doing stuff all day or talking to people all day. And normally like being busy would exhaust me, but that kind of busy made me feel so alive and just like happy.
That's so
Like
nice.
I felt like my anxiety took a day off, like
Yeah.
after the interview obviously, because the morning was all anxiety, but after that it was like, when you're out and about and you're in things, you're doing things, I feel much more like almost like invincible, like, oh, I can keep going, I can do anything.
Yeah, I think it is. I think it is
Yeah.
just about doing stuff that makes you feel present, isn't it? Because I think when you're,
Yeah.
obviously you can lose track of time scrolling on your phone, but you're not present in that. Your mind is somewhere else. You're just sucked into all of these algorithms and whatever it is. But when you're losing
Yeah.
track of time, but you're doing something and you're in that moment and you're like being either physical or just in a physical space with someone or something, that's what helps you to just like let go of everything else, and nothing else feels important at that time because you're just in that present moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next question is super similar, actually, given what we just discussed, but it's
Yeah.
when do you feel most alive? The same kind of thing.
I think it's a similar kind of thing for me, but I would also add to that is when I'm traveling as well. Being in a complete different environment and location is when I feel most alive. And also, weirdly, I feel the most connected to the world and everything when I'm somewhere else, because it makes me remember that there are the other places that exist. And that kind of, that idea of sonder, where you realize that everybody else around you is living their own really intricate lives, and having that realization of knowing that somewhere, say if you're in, I don't know, Brazil or something, and you're realizing all these people in Brazil are having really intricate, detailed lives at the same time as you're having your life somewhere else. And that realization just kind of makes me feel like that's the reason for living, like being connected
Also,
to
like,
these people.
and when you're traveling, I think you notice your environment more
Yeah.
because it's different. So there's differences to notice, and that in itself kind of brings you back to yourself. Like you
Yeah.
have to be present to notice those things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel the same with that. I think my answer here was all about I'd gone like paddleboarding recently and realized like actually when I'm doing sports or when I'm doing things that feel like there's a bit of risk to them as well. But
Yeah.
because I'm an adrenaline junkie and it's not healthy, but I do feel most alive when I've like the most alive I've ever felt in my life have been times when I thought I was going to die, or I felt like I could die, or I'd taken a big risk and things had gone wrong, but then I'd escaped by like the skin of my teeth. Like
Yeah.
happened an embarrassing amount of times, but I always feel so alive. For me, it was like, how can I find moments like that without risking my life? Like,
Yeah.
and it's doing little things. It's things like taking small risks. It's things like trying new sports. I realized like actually I need to have more of that stuff in my life.
Yeah.
So I actually started looking into like what things I can join up, and I went paddleboarding again, and I'm going to buy a paddleboard for this
Yeah.
summer because that's something that
Love
I've
that.
never done in my life, but I did
So
it once and
fun.
loved it. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Next question. What traits in other people make you feel envy, and what might that reveal?
I don't know. That's a hard one to answer. I think because we've spoken so much about envy and jealousy and what that means, and I guess we spoke about this in week 3 when we were talking about jealousy, and how when you do feel envy, that's like a sign for action. If you feel envious towards someone, that's you telling yourself that you want to do that, so go do it. And so I think, I don't know, maybe I think the traits, when do I feel this most? I think it's when I see someone be so confident in themselves and be so authentically themselves in whatever they're doing, that it make not even, I guess envious is a difficult word, but I do see that, and it inspires me. And I know, maybe because I've learnt to turn envy into inspiration, maybe that's why. But when I see that, I see people do that, and I want to be more like that. And so I guess that is telling me that I want to do more things that are more myself. I want to discover myself more as well, I think. And maybe that's where that comes from. But yeah, what about you?
Pretty much the same, just a bit more, for me, a bit more emphasis on not caring what other people think. So like one of the people I love is Ice-T, because he doesn't give a shit. Like if you go check his Twitter, his X or whatever it's called now,
Yeah.
he just his comebacks to people who insult him or are just dicks to him, you can just tell it's like he's just gonna he's like, I'm gonna flick this fly off my face, like this person is pissing me off. He does not care. I met him really briefly in New York like last year,
Oh,
a
no
couple years
way.
ago now, and I was like, just like, I love you, I love everything about you, I want to be this way, I want to care less what people think. So yeah, it's I know, it's just that I want that for myself, and that's something I'm
Yeah.
always working towards.
Yeah, that's
I think
exactly
it's
what it is. It's just a
hilarious.
huge sign saying you obviously want this, so go get it. And that's
Yeah,
amazing. I love that.
exactly. And then what conversations leave you energized instead of drained?
Um, I think it's I don't know if it's always about the conversation, but it's about the energy of the other person that I'm talking to. If they have that kind of
Yeah.
energy where they feel uplifting and that kind of anything is possible, like energy that they have, whatever you're talking about feels exciting, and that leaves me feeling really energized when I'm with those
Yeah.
people. And you, because they feel like the world is their oyster and they can do anything, that makes me feel like the world is my oyster and I can do anything, and then you feel really excited by it. And I guess people that you can just bounce off, and when you have an idea and they have an idea, and you can just, they don't always come to fruition. Nothing, it doesn't always happen, but it's just being able to dream with someone and like think about the future. I
Exactly.
love that. I love that.
You just took my answer right out of my mouth.
Sorry.
Like my answer to this was people I can dream with.
No way.
And not even just dream, but people I can be ridiculous with. Like
Yeah.
my old flatmate Megan, she's like amazing. We It's funny because I know she's like sometimes she comes off as really shy with other people, but because we're like really similar, we would have these really in-depth like conversations like every night. And sometimes it's talking about all the things we could be or we want to be, and it is like dreaming. And sometimes it's just, do you think aliens are real? Yeah, I think aliens are real. And I think this. And have you heard of this conspiracy theory? And like, I know they're ridiculous things we're talking about. And I'm not saying I actually 100% believe this
Yeah.
stuff, but it's just really fun to theorize and to talk about things and do hypotheticals.
Exactly.
Whereas sometimes when I'll try and talk about that kind of stuff with people, and they'll be like, oh, that's just not true. Or, well,
Yeah.
and I'm like, but it could be, and they're like, but it isn't, and I'm like, shut up,
Yeah, you can
like just
dream.
shut up, you're
We
so
can dream
boring.
about things. Yeah, exactly. I find
Yeah,
that too. That drains me when people are
like
like that.
don't people who don't take themselves too seriously, that's when I enjoy the
Yeah.
conversation the most.
Yeah. Dreamers. People you can
And it,
dream with. I love that.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and it goes without saying that we hate small talk,
Oh
so
my God, yeah, I can't. I
barely
can't.
needs
As
to be
soon as
mentioned.
if I can ask someone a really deep personal question immediately off of meeting them and they come back with like, yeah, how about this? And I'm like, oh my God, I know we're going to be able to like chat for hours and it's fine.
Yeah,
But when it's like super small talk and when you like try and say something a bit more interesting and they just cut it off, I'm like, I have nothing to say to you. I have nothing to
yeah,
say. So then I don't know what
I
to say
leave
anymore.
almost like every time I meet a new person, I leave either feeling like I've connected really well with them or like I'm embarrassed for oversharing.
Yeah, same. That's such a good like internal, what's it called? What is it called? Dial that's showing you how you feel, how you leave with when you leave with someone. So like if you're feeling
Yeah,
like that, or you're feeling like you've overshared, they're obviously not the type of person for you. Or if you're feeling like you're
exactly.
like, I can do anything in the world, I can be a mermaid if I want to, then they are the good type of people.
That's yeah, like that's exactly instead of it's because sometimes I'll leave and I'm so embarrassed that I overshared, and
Yeah.
my the corresponding action to that is, oh, I shouldn't do that again. So next time I speak to someone, I'm going to hold back, and that's exactly what I was
No.
saying earlier. What I get sad about is when I do that, because I'd rather overshare and embarrass myself like, because that's just the risk that comes
Yeah.
with being who I am,
Yeah.
and like that's the only way I'm going to find people I really connect
Yeah.
with. It's like that saying, and again, I might have said this already, but I love that saying about how it was a video that went around a while ago. Like everyone in the world looks blue, right? Imagine everyone in the world is like blue stick figures, and you're watching like two individual people get out of bed in the morning, and they're actually both red, but they go into the bathroom and they paint themselves blue before they go out so that no one will know they're red. And it shows all these people like moving in a sea of blue, and you see those two people who are actually red walk right by each other, and they never see each other because they're both hiding because they both painted themselves blue. And I love that as like just like a concept, because it's so true. Like if you're not honest about the weirdest, craziest parts of yourselves, you're never going to find the people that you would connect with, and you miss out on so much
Yeah,
stuff.
that's so true. That's literally what this whole week has been about. It's about like finding who
Mm,
you authentically are, and who, whenever you do find that authentic version of yourself by doing these little things like discovering what you like, discovering who you like, discovering where you like to go, then you will attract those kind of people and you will find your soul friends or your soul people or your soul mates even, and you never know.
yeah.
But I just think it's so important to be able to do that. And yeah, I love that. I love that like, analogy of the blue people as well. And I think so many people are trying to be someone else all the time because there's a lot of external pressure to look a certain way or be a certain way, that we kind of don't show our true selves. But the second someone opens up and shows their true selves, it's always met with a lot of love. And even if it's not met with love, those other people, they're not your people. Just ignore
It
those
doesn't
people.
matter.
Exactly.
Yeah, throw it
But
away. It doesn't
everyone,
have to have any effect on your life.
exactly. Everyone I have connected to on a deeper level has overshared or said something vulnerable which I've connected with. And so it's like, I don't even think oversharing it's not a bad thing. It's just, you have to be selective with who you do it with, because the response you get is sometimes can hurt you and sometimes it might not. And so you have to be selective with who you share to. But oversharing is a great thing. Oversharing is a great thing. I overshare with all of my really good friends all the time.
I overshare with strangers.
Same, and strangers. And I'm like,
someone.
now we're friends. Now we're friends because you know everything about me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just the way that we operate.
Yeah.
This week was so fun.
It
I think this has
was.
been my favorite week so far.
Same actually. I've loved this week. It's been
I've
great.
loved deconstructing it.
Same.
Love talking to you.
I love talking to you. You're definitely one of those people that energize me always.
You too. You too. There's a reason I love you.
Oh, I love you too. So cute. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys.
Yes.
Thank you. And we'll see you all again next week.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.